Just a warm welcome to everybody, all the Metro Stars supporters and sponsors. My name's Michael Peroni. I'm here at TK Shuttle Reserve with Metro Stars, new head coach, but returning in a different capacity this time, I guess, Danny Greystone. So, welcome, Danny. Thanks very much. Be gentle with me today. This is my first interview so far for the season. So, thanks for having me. Like I said, welcome back to Metro. I know you did a little bit of work here about 10 years ago or so with Ivan. But before we get into it, can you just give us a bit of a rundown what's been happening in that period of time over the last 10 years, where you've been, where you've worked?
Yeah, no problem, mate. And thanks for having me as well. Go gentle on me. It's my first interview of the year as well. So like you already said, I was here 10 years ago as a specialist coach with Ivan. Pretty much just to get some experience working alongside another senior coach, because it's very difficult to get experience and ideas off of the senior coaches when you're the head coach at a club. So my year that I spent here with Ivan was excellent. Such a good group of players, and they really achieved a lot that last year. Since then, I want to go back to being a head coach myself, because it's what I am, it's what I do. So I went back to South Adelaide. So I was a former sort of captain of the club there, so I returned as head coach when they returned to the NPL, with the job of keeping them in the NPL. I spent 4 years there. We unfortunately got relegated in the third year back down to the State League, but I brought them back up the following year. Then I decided it was time for a bit of a change of challenge, really. I felt like I'd taken the club as far as I could probably get it on the infrastructure that we had at that point. An opportunity came up for me in Cairns. So I moved to Queensland, packed up and drove up there. That's a bit of a long drive. But the challenge to go and move to a different state, I always wanted to place myself somewhere where I could learn and get learning opportunities. And with Cairns and Far North Queensland not having an A-League side, the new franchise up there, Cairns, was actually treated like a A-League club. So you got the media interviews after every game and during the week as well. So that's something I hadn't had a lot of experience in that I wanted to go and get. And it was a fantastic year up there. It's our objective during the course of that first 12 months was to establish ourselves as a new brand in Far North Queensland and qualify for the FFA Cup, and we went a little bit further than that, and we ended up in the round of 16 where we lost to Sydney 2-1, and we missed a penalty in the last 5 minutes. So that was in front of about, I think we got 6,000 supporters on that day. Unfortunately, they decided that the money that had been lost during that year, it was time that the franchise had not been successful, so they decided to pull the pin back and hand the franchise back to Far North Queensland. So it's kind of left me in a little bit of a limbo as far as their head coach. So I thought to myself, okay, where do I go now to get more experience? So I decided to move down to Melbourne and get myself in, with the better chance of getting myself in one of the A-League clubs. I was fortunate that when I arrived in Melbourne, Rob Sherman, who actually did my B licence, was head of football at Melbourne Victory just before he got the technical director job for Football Australia, actually. And look, I'm a Man City fan, and I think I sent 10 different emails and made phone calls to Melbourne City, but they weren't interested in having a Man City supporter at Melbourne City for some reason. But I spoke to Rob, and within an hour I was having a coffee with him down the road, and he's such a great guy, and when he's really supportive for coaches and football people. So as soon as me and Rob got talking, we knew we were sort of on the same page. So I started actually within Melbourne Victory of redesigning their whole pre-academy phase. So that was all their development department at the club from age 8 all the way through to under 12s. After that, I progressed into the academy. Rob moved on to the technical director role, and Drew Sherman, his son, came in as head of football. And in the course of the 2-3 years I was there, obviously we had COVID that hit as well, which stalled things a little bit, even more so in Melbourne. But I ended up as doing the youth team, as head coach of the youth team, and also head of football for the whole academy. So mainly my role was to work with and develop all the coaches and all the players outside the first team and the first W League team. So a bit of a challenge. And then I get the phone call off Rob, and he talked me back. So it's
here we are.
And here we are. So yeah, it's good to be back.
Cheers. Obviously, like I said, it's been about 10 years since you've been back here, I guess. In a football sense, what sort of changes have you seen? And I know you might not have been here in the day-to-day back then. I think it was 2014, 13 or 14 you were 13. But what sort of changes are evident, I suppose, from that point in time to now, and even from an infrastructure point of view and what the club's trying to achieve here at the moment?
Oh, look, it's a good question. And I wasn't here on a day-to-day basis, so my role with Ivan was to actually research the opposition back in the day when we didn't have the luxury of Instat and Wisecout, and MPLV TV actually go and watch football matches, which was a bit of a novelty. So look, look, I knew Metro Stars. The foundations of this club I was very impressed during my time here about their ambition, what they wanted to achieve, the culture of the club, which was something that really stood out to me because it can take a hell of a lot of time to change an actual culture of the club. So I felt coming back to the club, that culture was still be there, and I was right. This is a successful club and it's an ambitious club and it wants to go places, and that sort of matched up with my ambition as a football coach as well. From an infrastructure perspective, obviously there's a lot's changed in South Australia in the last sort of 5-6 years. There's some real good facilities going up now. Obviously the AstroTurf pitches, bit of a bone for contention. Look, from a coach's perspective, I just get to set up and don't have to worry about where I'm doing certain drills that you would do on a grass surface. So from a coach's perspective, that makes my life a bit easier. But look, the club is, I think in its own admission was probably not reaching the heights that the club was used to reaching back when Ivan was in charge. And that's not necessarily a reflection of who was in charge or what was going on at the time or the players. Just sometimes things happen at a club where, you just get that period where it's a little bit reset after a bit of success, and even the top clubs in the world have that. So, look, I was really pleased that they chose me to come in and be part of that reset process so we can build this club back up to where it belongs.
Now, you're full-time here, correct? Yes? So let's put your TD hat on here just for a second. From a junior development perspective, just talk us through what sort of player you're trying to develop over a journey or over a period of time. I mean, the club's been reasonably successful. I mean, I sort of turned up here 12 or 13 years ago and played my last few years. And we did have, I'd say, pretty reasonable amount of success with kids sort of coming through the program. Now there's a lot more man hours that go into it, resources and whatnot. What sort of player are you looking to bring through? And I know that's probably another question you got to think about.
Yeah, look, it's not so much I have to think about. It's probably an hour-long answer.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Look, so the sort of player that we're trying to bring through to this club. Look, I think the club has always, for me, as being involved with the club and an outsider looking, the club has always been a football club that wants to play attractive, entertaining football. So we want to develop smart footballers at this club. And look, we probably have a more difficult task than most clubs, to be quite honest with you, because not only are we trying to develop players that are going to go on coming through and play for the seniors at a football club, we want to develop players that are going to be playing for the seniors of a club that wants to win the championship every year, which is a whole new challenge in itself, and it's look where we're at the moment. Look on the surface, you look at the results at the 18s and the reserves, and we're doing well and we're faring well. But I think one of the biggest standout, and this is not Metro Stars, I've watched most of the reserves and 18s games now, is I think the gap between the reserves and the seniors has just got a little bit bigger. That's what I've noticed, and generally I think that's mainly because the players that are arriving in the reserves are arriving there too young. So you look, it seems to be this race to the top to get to reserves as quick as we can. And look, one thing that really stood out for me is in Melbourne, when you have a look at the reserve teams over there, you've got young players still in there, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but they're playing in the reserves with 22, 23, 24-year-olds. I don't think that's happening over there, or from what I've seen. Like, I watch a lot of the reserves games here, and we've got very young players. which means we're asking a player to arrive at reserve team football potentially at 17, and they might not be ready for first team football at a club like Metro Stars until they're 21, 22, potentially. Now, these players aren't going to sit in the reserves for 3 or 4 years. So that's a challenge where, we've already discussed from a club perspective that maybe we need to start slowing down this journey a little bit on an individual basis and not fast tracking it. Because the most important thing ultimately is not how quickly these players come through to first team football, it's whether they stay there or not. Because so many players, even in the A-League environment when I was there, we sort of pat ourselves on the back for the couple of years because I think we had 22 players come through and play first team football, but more out of necessity than anything because of the injuries that they had in the squad. And the reality is most of them players aren't playing in the A-League anymore. So is that really a success story? So for me, it's about developing young talent that's going to have careers in the game, whether that be with Metro Stars or hopefully part of the A-League or go on and beyond that. That's ultimately what we want to help these young players on this journey with.
Good start to the season. You probably couldn't ask for much more. I think as we sort of record this, it's equal top. I think goal difference. I've been fortunate to see a couple of games, a couple of really solid wins against the usual suspects who've been at the top of the table for 4 or 5 years, namely Campbelltown being one of them, and obviously Comets, another solid win here on the weekend. I'm obviously happy with it as a supporter, but as a coach, how have you seen it so far?
Yeah, look, it's obviously great to have the start that we've had from a points perspective, from a performance perspective. So if I put my coach's hat on, obviously it's we're in performance, so it's about getting points. But I think the reality of some of our performances, and like we've discussed in the dressing room and every training week, and we're very honest as a coaching and a playing group, if come the end of the season we're still going to be in that position and we're going to be challenging for the championship or to go ahead in the cup, like we've got to get better and we've got to improve. And that's a week by week basis, because now you've gone from being a team that's, let's face it, we were pretty much being ignored for the first 3 or 4 rounds to now being the hunted. Because, one thing I've learnt in my very short time here is Metro Stars aren't very well liked. No, and look, it sort of reminds me when yeah, exactly. And look, it reminds me of probably why Man City fans hated Man United for so long. When you've got a club that's been successful and dominant, people want to knock them off their perch. And look, that's a challenge we've got to accept. It comes with wearing the badge. Ultimately, there's an expectation on how you perform and success. And look, the players are... Look, I couldn't have asked for a better response to the playing group. We've got together a real good squad. They work hard. They want to be successful. And look, we've just got to keep improving week by week and take each game as it comes. And we'll see where that takes us at the end of the season.
It's a long season. Look, club's had a few new names come in to complement some of those, I won't say older players. There's someone like Tony Solanga's only 33, he's not old in that sense. Are you happy with the talent that you've been provided? I mean, I know you got appointed reasonably sort of late. Maybe some of those decisions were not in your hands to begin with, but are you pleased with the squad that's been assembled for you for this year?
Yeah, I'm very pleased. Look, we're always looking to strengthen either the players within the squad. We want to strengthen them as individuals and players. One of the key directives that we had when we had the first meeting is we wanted players at this club that are hungry to succeed. Whether they're 39 or 18, we still want to be seeing that desire to be successful. With regards to the younger players, we want players that, perhaps want to use Metro Stars as a conduit to move on to the next level. I love seeing players come through and fulfill that potential and go on and play professional football. So hopefully some of these guys can go on and do that. But in terms of what the players that have come into the squad this year, we've got a real balance of good young talents who work hard. and also want to improve. And obviously, like you've already mentioned, we've got some of the older players and experienced players which are helping these guys on the way, and obviously extremely valuable having their experience on the pitch as well and on the training ground. So yeah, very happy. But as always, we look to improve. If there's an opportunity to improve the squad in any position and it presents itself to us, we'll take it.
Bit of a cliche. Everybody plays to win, particularly at this level. What's success going to look like for you? There's probably a two-pronged question, to be fair, but what's that going to look like for you, whether it be at the end of this year or at the end of a 3-year period or 4-year period?
Look, I don't really look beyond. We're going back to a cliche from the coaches.
Over the next 12 months.
Look, over the next 12 months, our objective was just to probably just steady the ship a little bit. Not that it was unsteady. Look, the team was being relatively successful. However, we wanted to make sure that we were going back on the trajectory where the club's heading towards where we want it to be. So, look, that was important for me. Hang on. Forgotten the question now. Oh. Go back again. Sorry, keep it rolling. You can cut it.
Right. What does the future hold in terms of success?
That's it.
And what does that look like for you? That's right. You're doing well.
Look, I think in terms of the future success for the club, look, the club has already said it wants to sort of match, the ambitions of a potential big league environment that South Australia wants to be part of. Whether it's the right timing for that at the moment, I think there's a lot of water to go under the bridge for this B League before it's going to, anyone with any degree of intelligence would put their name towards it. I think we've got to sort of sit back and sort of see how that pans out. In terms of success for this football club, look, Metro Stars wants to, I'm under no illusion. We're here to win trophies. And also, from my perspective as well, is have that trickle-down effect throughout the juniors, where we're consistently producing players that can play above and beyond this level. And I think that was probably one of my biggest surprises when I arrived at the club, is when I looked at the senior squad, is how many players were actually in the squad that have been developed for over sort of 4 or 5 years within the junior setup. And I think there was 2, actually, what I call established senior players. And I expected there probably to be more than that. So we've got to really have a look at ourselves as a club and what we're doing in the junior department of the club to develop players. Look, we're being successful. I've got no doubt about that, but it's just how we look at success. Is success for us winning the league at under 12s, or is it making sure that all those under 12s within your squad are developing and moving on to the next stage at under 13s with the right skill sets? So that's something which, look, I've always, as an individual and a coach, wanted to leave somewhere in a better place than when I arrived, and I think we're already getting towards that, and hopefully that carries on for many years.
Brilliantly answered. Well done. Mate, thanks very much. We'll leave it there. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for obviously affording an opportunity for the sponsors and our supporters to get to know you a little bit better, and I wish you all the best for the season.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.